If you are in the market for an ERP system, you are probably looking for a list of the leading solutions that are likely to do well in 2023. And this list will help you with that. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with ERP selection, digital transformation strategy, change management, as well as ERP implementation. So let's get back to today's topic, which is going to be the top 10 ERP systems in 2023. Before we start, just a quick note. This is the list of the ERP products, and this is not the list of the ERP vendors. In general, you should not be buying an ERP products based on this list, but hopefully this list can help you shortlist some of the options based on your requirements. So make sure you guys are going to do the due diligence. This list is supposed to be just the generic list of the leading solutions that are likely to do well in 2023. The variables that we typically use for this list is going to be the market share, the community, the product documentation, the product quality, the overall experience of the customers, the success in our own implementations. So these are some of the factors that we typically include based on our interviews with the customers, and based on that we compile this list. So now let's look at the list. Number 10 on our list is going to be Sage Intacct, and Sage Intacct maintains the same rank at number 10 as last year. Some of the strength for Sage Intacct is this is the only solution that is really AI CPA certified. So obviously accountants are going to love this solution. In general, Sage Intacct is typically promoted by the accountants, and they absolutely love this solution. The other strength for Sage Intacct is going to be it has very deep multi-entity functionality. So it is going to be friendly for some of the industries where you are going to require much deeper multi-entity functionality. And these are going to be industries such as your oil and gas, energy, utility. These are the companies where each of their project is probably going to be an entity. So sometimes these companies may have as many as 80 entities. And this is where you are probably going to require much deeper multi-entity as well as consolidation functionality. Sage Intacct is really designed for these verticals. These verticals are also not going to require as deep operational functionality with respect to your manufacturing distribution. So Sage Intacct does not do well in those industries. One of the notable improvement that they have done overall in the Sage Intacct portfolio is going to be their Bright Pearl acquisition. And Bright Pearl was really positioned for that omni-channel experience. It was more of the B2C ERP solution. It was not necessarily an ERP, but Bright Pearl used to sell it as ERP. It used to sit on top of your QuickBooks. So now you are going to have similar experience with Bright Pearl, but now this is going to sit on top of your Sage Intacct, because Sage Intacct is a very accounting solution. It does not have those inventory capabilities that you are going to find with some of the other stronger ERP solutions that are targeted for, let's say, the industrial manufacturing or industrial distribution. In the case of Sage Intacct, so you are going to get the omni-channel experience, and this is going to be especially friendly for retail-centric verticals where the way these companies are going to be designing the architecture, they probably require an OMS layer that sits on top of your accounting layer. So they typically treat the accounting completely separate from your OMS layer, where as part of your OMS, you need to have your POS, e-commerce, as well as your WMS. So typically those three combined form the OMS layer. There are challenges in that architecture. Traditionally, it was fine. And the reason why it was fine is because you didn't require as deeper omni-channel capabilities. Traditionally, the shoppers that bought from your store, you typically did not recognize them on e-commerce. You did not really have the cross-channel loyalty scenarios. So obviously you are going to get those omni-channel challenges in this particular architecture, even with Bright Pearl. But the companies that want the similar legacy architecture, when you are going to have the OMS layer and your Sage Intacct is treated as more of the accounting layer, they will probably appreciate Sage Intacct. Now, some of the weakness for Sage Intacct is going to be it has really lean operational capabilities that you are going to find with some of the other solutions on this list. And it's really an accounting solution. And then the other challenge that you're going to get is it does not have as deep consulting base, especially when you talk about those supply chain capabilities or the manufacturing capabilities. Sage Intacct is going to have a lot of accounting companies that are targeting the Sage Intacct, but you are not going to get as deep manufacturing capabilities in their ecosystem. So those are some of the weaknesses. But overall, Sage Intacct is a very strong solution, and that's why it ranks at number 10 on our list for this year. Number 9 on our list is going to be a solution called Acumatica. And some of the strengths for Acumatica is going to be it's really designed for those B2B verticals. The data model that Acumatica has, it's extremely friendly for B2B centric industries when you are going to have complications of, for example, buying groups, or when you have complications of the parent-child relationship between many different customer accounts, and customers could be vendors, customers could be employee. So those are some of the complex scenarios that you are going to find only in B2B verticals. Acumatica is really designed for that. If you look at the pricing and discounting capabilities, when you look at the vendor catalog capabilities, how your vendor pricing is going to be promoted when vendors are going to send the catalog, and that catalog is going to be utilized to compute the pricing of your catalog, and then you need to share it with your customers as well. So this whole transaction could be extremely deep, and if you don't have those B2B capabilities, you are probably going to struggle a lot. The other strengths with Acumatica is going to be it has vibrant marketplace as well as the integration and the consulting base, but it's not going to be as strong as some of the other ecosystems, for example, Microsoft or SAP, but Acumatica in their target market is doing really well overall. The other strength for Acumatica is going to be its UI and consumption-based pricing. Sometimes consumption-based pricing could be extremely friendly, and Acumatica could be cheaper than a lot of other solutions in some verticals. It might not always be cheaper. The pricing could be trickier overall to analyze. So make sure you have somebody who really understands the pricing and licensing with Acumatica before you explore that. But overall, the consumption-based pricing could be extremely friendly for certain vertical, and the UI is very cloud native, similar to other cloud native solutions. So that's where Acumatica is going to be favored by startups. Let's say if they have been on the newer systems such as your HubSpot or Salesforce, they probably would like similar experience, and that's why they probably will appreciate the Acumatica user experience. Now, the weakness for Acumatica is going to be it's primarily a North American solution. So the global companies might struggle with it, especially if they have to utilize the solution from one of the VARs. And sometimes it could be very difficult to find whether these capabilities are natively built, because what Acumatica does is it also white labels some of the products from the vendors. And if they are going to lose those relationships, there could be challenges in utilizing Acumatica product in general. So again, Acumatica ecosystem requires far deeper capabilities just because of their business model, the way they are approaching, very similar to Microsoft. And the other challenges with Acumatica is going to be you are not going to find as deep last mile micro vertical functionality that you are going to find with some of the other solutions, for example, Epicor, Infor on this list. But overall, Acumatica is a very strong solution, and that's why it ranks at number 9 on our list for 2023. Now, number 8 on our list is going to be Epicor Kinetic. And Epicor Kinetic solution is targeted for the manufacturing companies that are not going to have very complex manufacturing products. And the best way to analyze the complexity of manufacturing products is going to be, let's say if you are developing, for example, warehouse forklift, where you are probably not going to have as many layers or bombs or components that may go in that as compared to, let's say if you are doing garbage trucks or buses or maybe a satellite. And depending upon the complexity of the products and the lead time, typically these are going to be the factors whether you are going to be successful with the Epicor Kinetic solution. And sometimes that could be very difficult to analyze. But overall, Epicor Kinetic has very deep manufacturing capabilities, especially for the lighter manufacturing products that are not going to have very long lead time. The other strength for Epicor Kinetic is going to be it has pre-integrated MES, and they acquired one more MES solution. So the way Epicor is going to approach the architecture, for example, where they are going to be hosting the quality asset management, preventive maintenance processes are going to be very different from some of the other solutions that we have on the list. So if you are very shop floor heavy as an organization, and if your ERP selection is driven by shop floor, they might appreciate Epicor a lot more compared to the companies that are going to be very supply chain heavy, because they would prefer these capabilities as part of the ERP. So depending upon the architecture that you are trying to build and where you would like to host these processes in which system, so depending upon your architecture as well as processes, you might appreciate Epicor Kinetic. The other strength for Epicor Kinetic is going to be you are going to find a lot more last mile capabilities that you are not going to find with other solutions on this list. For example, NetSuite Acumatica. So that's the strength. Now, some of the weaknesses for the Epicor Kinetic is going to be, as I mentioned, it's not really designed for those complex manufacturing products when you are going to have a lot of sub-assemblies. So make sure you guys are going to do POC, especially with the MRP runs. We have seen scenarios where Epicor would not work on the MRP run after spending 2 years during the implementation, just because it could not handle the workload of those MRP runs. So make sure you guys are going to be doing the POCs in the pre-selection phase. It might be harder in the post-selection phase. Now, the other challenge that you are going to find with Epicor is going to be it has very limited best of breed capabilities that you are going to find. For example, let's say if you're looking for best of breed integrations, the options that you might find in Acumatica and NetSuite, for example, let's say if you're a manufacturing organization that is selling to Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and if you're doing that, for those integration, Epicor might have those capabilities, but typically they will require you to switch to their tools, to their integration. So even though you might get a lot more in the suite, if you are trying to replace everything in your architecture, Epicor Kinetic could be a great solution. But if you are trying to build more of best of breed solution, you might have challenges there. Having said that, Epicor Kinetic is a very strong solution for 2023, and that's why it ranks at number 8 on our list. Now, number 7 on our list is going to be the product called Sage X3. And this product also maintains the same rank as last year. And Sage X3 is targeted for the process manufacturing companies as well as process distribution companies up to roughly $3 billion in revenue. The strengths for Sage X3 is going to be the pharma-centric, the food-centric, the agriculture-centric last mile capabilities are going to be extremely deep with this solution. The consulting base that you're going to have, that is going to have expertise with these solutions. The integration that you are going to require, the peripheral system that you are going to be needing in these verticals, you are going to find a lot of pre-baked integration that you may not find with the other solutions. But Sage X3 is going to be a great fit for these verticals. It's not going to be as great fit for some of the other verticals, such as your discrete manufacturing or the pure play distribution. You might find challenges in those verticals. You might not have as many integrations as you may be able to find with some of the other solutions that are really focused on those industries. The other advantage that we have with Sage X3 is going to be the capabilities for the public and regulated and the audit-centric industries are going to be far deeper. So CFOs are absolutely going to love this solution in general. So those are some of the strengths. Now, weaknesses. So Sage X3 obviously is a very large solution and it could be overwhelming for the smaller companies. If you're a small company, let's say under $100 million in revenue, you might have better options on this list. Sage X3 is probably not for you. Now, while it is a large solution, it might not be able to process the same transaction workload as your SAP or Oracle. So make sure you guys are going to do a little volumetric analysis as well as POC, especially if you're going to be a large company, to make sure that it can handle the workload and it has comparable customers. And even if you have the comparable customers, make sure you vet the architecture, how they are using ERP system in their architecture, sometimes you might have the customer references and they might be using the ERP system only for accounting, and they might claim that Sage X3 is used in a $30 billion organization. That could be a possibility, but since it is only used for accounting, that may be possible. But if you are going to be utilizing for the end-to-end transactions, you might have issues in some of the verticals. So again, compare apple to apple when you are doing these comparison and when you are doing the reference checks with these solutions. Having said that, Sage X3 is a very strong solution, especially for the process verticals, and that's why it ranks at number 7 on our list. Now, number 6 on our list is going to be Infor Cloud Suite LN and M3. And the reason both of these solutions are listed at number 6 is because they are targeted for very specific industries and they typically don't have any sort of overlap. And the way Infor approaches the market, they are going to have a lot of solutions targeted for very specific industries because they are trying to provide this functionality as part of the suite. So that's the strength for Infor, and that's why sometimes none of their products may have as large market share as some of the vanilla products, but they are still going to be best suited for these micro industries. That's why we have clubbed them at number 6. Last year we had Infor CSI at number 6, but this year we have Infor Cloud Suite LN and M3. And the reason why we have done this is because number 1, Infor CSI, even though it's a very strong manufacturing solution for SMBs, it has challenges with some of the verticals, especially when you are going to be a business that is going to be the combination of your distribution and manufacturing. And that's a very common scenario. The Infor CSI, the way it works, it might not have all of those bells and whistles that you are going to be requiring for the complex business model. Also, the Infor CSI, even though it's designed for very complex manufacturing products, but when you are going to have lead time of, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, and when you are going to have the operational steps that are going to be extending the timeline across the date time frame, you might find it challenging. Also, the Infor CSI does not have capabilities such as your handling units or the licensing plate that you are going to find with the solutions such as LN and M3. Also, LN and M3, even though their ecosystems might not be as strong, you might not have as a strong consulting base, but these products are very uniquely positioned for some of the verticals. In those verticals, you are not going to find any other solutions. For example, let's say M3 is positioned for the apparel manufacturing market, and you hardly have 2 or 3 solutions that can deliver the functionality in cloud, and that's what makes the Infor Cloud Suite M3 super powerful and probably just one of the contender in some of these industries. And that's the reason why Infor Cloud Suite LN and M3 are at number 6 on this list. Now, number 5 on our list is going to be IFS. IFS is targeted for MRO, the field service, or the asset-heavy organizations. Typically, these are going to be slightly more service-centric organizations as opposed to product-centric organizations. IFS has very deep asset management as well as your field service-centric functionality, and typically, they are going to be able to process the same workload that your SAP might be able to do for the financial workloads. For example, when you are going to be doing the scheduling for, let's say, 500,000 resources, and that's a very, very, very heavy workload overall on the system capacity, and IFS is able to win these logos with such large accounts, and that's where IFS really excels. But IFS is not really suitable for every single industry out there. Overall, the cloud native experience is far superior. Even though they have re-architected their solution, the UI is really good overall. The technology is not as clunky as some of the other solutions on this list. The weaknesses for IFS is going to be, it's not really designed for that constraint-based manufacturing. So if you're really heavy on shop floor scheduling, probably IFS is not for you. But let's say if you are very aftermarket-centric organization, where you are primarily a service-centric organization, you might do manufacturing on the side or distribution on the side, then IFS could be a great fit. IFS in general is a very large solution. So for the smaller companies, it's not the best fit. It might come across as extremely overwhelming. So that's why IFS still maintains the rank at number 5 on our list for this year. Now, number 4 is going to be SAP S/4HANA. SAP S/4HANA is targeted for the companies that are going to have revenue over $1 billion. that's where SAP S4HANA really shines. And the biggest strength of SAP S4HANA is going to be for the product centric industries. And this is probably the only solution that can work with the transactional workload when you're going to have millions and millions of journal entries, and the depth of transaction is going to be starting from your CRM to your MRP to your accounting. And this is where your SAP S4HANA does really well. In the enterprise accounts, the only solutions that you are going to have is probably going to be SAP and Oracle. Oracle is designed for slightly more service-centric organizations. It might struggle with the product-centric workloads as SAP S4HANA is going to have. The other strengths for SAP S4HANA is going to be the best-of-breed architecture. When you talk about the HCM, when you talk about SAP Commerce Cloud, when you talk about your Kaleidos Cloud or WMS, TMS, these capabilities are provided as part of the suite with SAP S4HANA that are probably going to be pre-integrated with SAP. So that's a huge plus because you are going to be spending millions and millions of dollars with these integrations. And sometimes it requires much deeper analysis in terms of whether which path is going to be cheaper. But in general, you are going to have far stronger best of breed capabilities. SAP S4HANA does really well when you are going to be very complex global financial organization, when financial traceability, as well as GDPR compliance, SOX compliance for the public companies, for global orgs. That's where SAP S4HANA does really well. It's really designed for those large, complex organizations. The weakness for SAP S4HANA is going to be, it's not really designed for a smaller organization. If you are going to be under $1 billion in revenue, then you can find other solutions that can provide far superior experience, and then they can provide far more functionality as part of the suite, as opposed to going for such larger solution that is probably going to be overwhelming for your users. The other weaknesses for SAP S4HANA is going to be you require much deeper IT capabilities in building the last mile functionality, as well as to tailor those enterprise workflows to your organization, as well as to your integrations. And that's where, unless you have very deep SAP integration capabilities as part of your team, you might struggle a lot overall with SAP S4HANA. And SAP S4HANA does not have as strong capabilities in the cloud as of today. But overall, SAP S4HANA is a very strong solution, especially for enterprise companies. And that's why it ranks at number 4 on our list for this year. Number 3 on our list is going to be Oracle ERP Cloud. Last year at number 3, we had Microsoft Dynamics 365 FNO. We have downgraded Oracle ERP Cloud a little bit just because we are seeing a lot more failure with Oracle ERP Cloud compared to some of the other solutions in the market. And the reason for that is because Oracle ERP Cloud is designed for a very specific capabilities. It has far deeper capabilities for the service-centric, the HCM-centric organizations that are going to have very deep human resources requirements. When you require the deeper capabilities, when your TMS and WMS processes and the HCM processes are going to be embedded as part of your ERP, but not every industry typically need those kind of capabilities. Oracle ERP Cloud, while it is very capable for the enterprise companies, but the scope of those transactions are limited. Typically, Oracle ERP Cloud does really well when you are trying to process these transactions from the financial perspective. So for example, in the legacy retail architecture, where your OMS layer was completely separated from your accounting layer, Oracle ERP Cloud may be okay. But when you are trying to embed everything and when you are trying to host everything as part of one solution, especially if you are going to be a product-centric industry, that's where you might struggle with the workload with Oracle ERP Cloud. We have seen scenarios where SAP S4HANA may take roughly 18 seconds for the same workload, but Oracle ERP Cloud ended up taking roughly 20 minutes for the same transaction. So again, it's designed for very different purpose. So if you're going to be the enterprise company in the service-centric organizations, media, healthcare, telecom, these are the companies where Oracle ERP Cloud does really well, but not necessarily for the product-centric enterprise companies. The weaknesses for Oracle ERP Cloud is going to be, it's not really fit for the product-centric companies and cannot really handle the large workloads, especially when your transaction is going to be extremely thick, as you are going to find with your SAP S4HANA. And that's where it really struggles. And it could be overwhelming for smaller companies. It is not really designed for your companies that are going to have under $1 billion in revenue. But still, Oracle ERP Cloud is still a very strong solution for 2023, and that's why it ranks at number 3 on our list. Now, number 2 on our list is going to be Microsoft Dynamics 365 F&O. It has replaced Oracle ERP Cloud from the last year. And the reason why Oracle Dynamics 365 F&O has replaced is because it has slightly deeper capabilities for the diversified organizations. Now, in terms of the organizational workload, they might be similarly capable. In general, Oracle might be able to handle a lot more, but typically in that architecture, it is a very decoupled architecture, and that's why you might see Oracle in very enterprise accounts, but Microsoft Dynamics 365, especially if it is going to be installed in the manufacturing organization, retail, distribution organizations, this is where you are going to require a lot of heavy lifting overall in terms of the transactional depth that you are going to have. So Microsoft Dynamics, as of today, has one of the strongest capabilities in cloud for the product-centric companies. And it can do really well in the architecture, engineering-centric verticals because it has very deep project management functionality as well. The other strength for Microsoft Dynamics 365 F&O is going to be the marketplace and the ecosystem. Some of the developers that we have in the Microsoft are as big as the ERP companies, MES companies, or some of the e-commerce companies, and they are trying to build these integrations themselves. So their quality of development is going to be very similar to your Microsoft. So all add-ons are not necessarily created equal, but with Microsoft, you require far deeper expertise in vetting what is going to be the quality of these add-ons and whether they are going to work for your architecture. The weaknesses for Microsoft Dynamics 365 F&O is going to be, it might not be able to handle as large workload as your SAP S4HANA, even though it's installed in very large organization. But again, the scope of the transaction, the depth of the transaction is going to be equally important as well. If you are implementing this in more of the decoupled architecture, then that's probably not the right comparison. So make sure, again, you do the volumetric analysis and you do the POCs of your transactions before committing to a vendor. Otherwise, you might have challenges in going live with some of these solutions. Now, the other challenges that you're going to find with Microsoft Dynamics 365 F&O, even though it's very customizable, it's a very technical solution, and typically the implementers that are going to be as part of the Microsoft ecosystem are going to be very technical in nature, but they don't really have the same depth from the financial regulation perspective and the financial traceability when you are going to be looking for that visual traceability that you have in products such as SAP S4HANA. That is going to be missing, and that could be very hard for the very large complex organizations where the traceability is going to be very important in finding, okay, what is happening with your transactions, and sometimes it could be very confusing. You might spend hours and hours in debugging each of the transaction. That debugging is going to be much easier with products such as SAP S4HANA, but overall, Microsoft Dynamics 365 F&O is a very strong product, and that's why it ranks at number 2 on our list for this year. Now, number 1 on our list is going to be NetSuite, and it has the same ranking as the last year. NetSuite is targeted for the SMB-centric organizations. It is really strong for the commerce-centric verticals. The restaurant, hospitality, SaaS, tech, media, not-for-profit, these are some of the verticals NetSuite does really well. One of the strengths of NetSuite is going to be, it has one of the richest cloud functionality, especially when you talk about the globalization functionality of NetSuite. It is localized and globalized in roughly 100 countries. So that's why you are going to see a lot more adoption of NetSuite, especially across the countries and in the commerce verticals. The other strength for NetSuite is going to be that it is designed for those audit-ready as well as public-centric organization where financial traceability is going to be critical. The traceability that you are going to find with your SAP, which has visual workflow, that is not built as part of your NetSuite, but you are at least going to find the log of what is happening with each of the document and the transaction. The integrations, the marketplace, and the ecosystem are one of the best. You can find a lot of best of breed options with NetSuite. For example, when you are going to be very channel-driven organization, when you are integrating with, let's say, Amazon, eBay, Walmart, you have integration with, for example, channel advisor, or you are looking for best of breed capabilities with several different PLMs that are going to be geared towards those industry verticals, that's where NetSuite is going to really shine. Now, the weaknesses for NetSuite is going to be their data model, the pricing is not really designed for B2B centric companies. So if you are a B2B distribution or B2B manufacturing organization, you might require very thick add-on. Now, depending upon the quality of the add-on, sometimes you might find very good add-on that has been proven over a lot of times, and they could have as good quality as your NetSuite, but that's always not the case. Typically with add-ons, you are going to find a lot of developers that might have very small organization, and they might not be as well capitalized as your NetSuite and SAP. And that's why you might have a lot of issues overall with the NetSuite installations. In fact, we see a lot of failure with NetSuite just because they are not utilizing NetSuite's core capabilities in the industries where NetSuite really shines. The other weakness for NetSuite is going to be it could be expensive compared to some of the comparable systems that are going to be in the SMB space. So that's another challenge that we have with NetSuite. And the last mile functionality that you're going to find, especially with those B2B manufacturing distribution centric organizations with Acumatica and 4 Epicor, that you might not find with NetSuite. But overall, NetSuite is a very diverse and strong solution, and it can be applicable in many different business models. And that's why it ranks at number 1 on our list. Now, if you enjoyed this video, we are going to include the link of our blog that is going to have much deeper analysis of these solutions. So don't forget to check that out. Also, if you prefer audio version, WBS Rocks podcast is also available on Google, Spotify. So don't forget to check that. And if you enjoyed this video and you don't want to miss these videos, we publish them on a weekly basis. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you haven't checked our digital transformation report for 2023, we include several lists such as this, as well as some of the recommendation in terms of how to execute your digital transformation initiatives. So make sure you download that. On that note, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.